The quirky class in Thailand, despite having only 8 students, each possesses extraordinary skills that leave people amazed. Firstly, there's a boy with extraordinary mimicry abilities. With just one observation, he can effortlessly replicate long-range three-point shots, as if he were a basketball genius duplicator. Next are a pair of twin brothers whose perception is perfectly synchronized, as if they share a telepathic connection. Around them, no secrets can be hidden. Then there's the girl with mysterious powers. With a gentle touch on an object, she can glimpse everything happening on it, seeing all the traces of history. However, the most striking is the seemingly aloof top student. He's a natural-born elite hacker. With just a tap on the screen, he can access the principal's office surveillance system. Coincidentally, as he enters, the principal is discussing gossip about this group of students with the class teacher, and he already knows everything. Before the eavesdropping students behind the wall could listen further, the principal, with a sharp gaze, suddenly asked a question, leaving them all startled. Meanwhile, the class teacher, glancing at the flickering USB drive in hand, also realized the situation was dire. Both reached out to shut down the computer simultaneously, but the principal redirected it towards himself. Faced with the conversation that the students had already overheard, the principal decided to seize the opportunity to reveal the truth to everyone. "Hello, everyone. I'm Adana, a movie enthusiast," the principal began. He went on to explain that the school had selected 8 students with superhuman abilities through a peculiar exam. This selection wasn't based on grades, as even the poorest student in class, Amin, made the cut. Finally, the principal explained the reason. "You've all studied biology, right? As time progresses, all living organisms evolve, and humans are no exception. We stumbled upon the discovery that stimulating the brain with a specific type of sound wave can alter human behavior patterns, awakening their latent superpowers. However, only a small fraction of people are susceptible to this stimulation, and you 8 are the lucky ones chosen. The purpose of forming the genius class in school is to help everyone unleash their potential to the fullest." After the principal finished speaking, he suddenly pulled out the USB drive, plunging the whole classroom into silence. The students looked at each other, feeling that this sudden action was somewhat eerie. Xiao, however, didn't care at all and said naively, "Wow, this sounds so mysterious." With that, he foolishly ran to the window. "Don't run. Do you think you've turned into an X-Men or something?" a classmate teased. Xiao was absent-minded, often forgetting things. He even frequently lost his pens, but fortunately, a kind girl in the front row always lent him one. During class, the homeroom teacher asked everyone to take turns introducing their abilities. Although Xiao hadn't awakened his ability yet, he still couldn't resist being silly when he got on stage. He came up with a joke on the spot, using the name of the class genius, which made the whole class burst into laughter, except for the genius who sternly made a note in his notebook. Everyone knew this guy had a serious grudge. Aming advised Xiao to be careful recently, or he might get into big trouble. Before he could finish speaking, a group of students suddenly rushed over, thrusting a black bag into Xiao's hands before hastily running away. Xiao opened the bag and instantly turned pale. Instead of his usual schoolbooks, he found a big black pot inside containing the answers to the final exam. His heart sank. This was serious. "Aming, do you see what this is?" Xiao asked in panic. Aming squinted. "Wow, this is a real trouble." The headmaster approached, his expression growing more serious. "What's going on?" His voice carried a sense of oppression. Aming suddenly broke the silence. "Principal, this is related to me." Xiao widened his eyes. How could his friend suddenly step forward like this? Was he trying to confess? "I can't let you take the blame alone," Aming said. "That bag was mine, and I took the answers." Xiao looked at Aming in shock. He was his good friend from middle school. Even though they were in different classes now, their friendship remained. How could he watch his friend take the blame like this? "No, Xiao refused decisively. This has nothing to do with you. I won't let you take the fall for me. The headmaster snatched the bag away and opened it, but then stood there dumbfounded. What's going on? He looked at Xiao with confusion. Principal, Xiao awkwardly smiled. It might be a misunderstanding. I don't know anything about this bag. I was just looking for my school bag. The headmaster remained silent for a moment, then nodded and left. Xiao breathed a sigh of relief, realizing how close he had come to a disaster. He opened the bag again, only to find that the exam answers had disappeared. He couldn't help but think of his seemingly magical talent, the ability to make things disappear out of thin air. Perhaps that was his special ability. Xiao felt proud and couldn't wait to show off in front of the whole class. However, the homeroom teacher approached with a serious expression and asked, "Homeroom teacher, can you retrieve those things that disappeared?" Xiao confidently explained that they were irretrievable. The homeroom teacher's expression became even more serious. "Homeroom teacher, he knows. If we can't find them, this will become a serious issue. We'll have to buy replacements for what they've lost. You need to figure out a way to retrieve those things. Otherwise, what will you do if you disappear one day?" To solve the problem, the homeroom teacher suggested. "Homeroom teacher, all right, from now on, after school, come to my office, and I'll personally help you out." However, before any help could be given, Xiao was confronted by his friend in the restroom. He tried to explain. "Xiao, I promised to come and love me, to give baby milk and still have to lay it out. Obviously, still need to lay down and ask, can't you recognize it?" His friend naturally didn't believe these nonsense. He looked like he was about to explode in anger. In this school, grades are revered as the supreme standard, and good students seem to have all the privileges, exempt from the rules. Conversely, students like friends, who are academically weak, must strive to score above 60 just to keep their precious long hair and resort to risky measures to find the answers. In a tense conversation, friend urgently asks Xiao, "Do you know where the answers are?" Xiao replies, "How could the answers disappear?" Tension and anxiety fill the air. In the quest for answers, friend grabs Xiao's hand and directs it towards the blow dryer. Suddenly, Xiao lets out a series of screams, not the expected outcome. Upon learning of friend's prank, the homeroom teacher demands a magic show, asking for an apple to disappear. However, friend makes someone's wallet vanish instead. This dramatic twist is both comical and absurd. To cover up his mistake, friend falls into a state of unease, which might lead to his powers spiraling out of control. Yet, in this tense atmosphere, he suddenly notices the obvious burn marks on Xiao's hand. His intuition tells him something is amiss. Urgently, friend presses, "Xiao, what happened?" Xiao reluctantly reveals the whole story to the homeroom teacher, exposing friend's cheating scheme completely. On campus, an ordinary day took an extraordinary turn. A friend got caught by the dean of students, who astonishingly pulled out a pair of scissors and chopped off his pride and joy, his long hair. It was a chilling sight, as if a nightmare had come true. "Dean, you can't do this." I grabbed his arm forcefully, but he remained steadfast. "His actions must be punished. It's the rule," the dean retorted angrily. My friend's expression turned ominously dark, as if a shadow had engulfed his entire being. He stormed off to the exclusive restroom for geniuses, angrily slapping me on the way. "Xiao, how could you just stand there?" His voice was filled with anger and disappointment. I couldn't bear his accusations and shoved him away. Little did I know, this push triggered his abilities. By the time I came to my senses, my friend had vanished without a trace. The next day at school, the campus buzzed with gossip. A student had mysteriously disappeared, and I knew deep down it was my friend's doing. Despite the heavy burden of worry weighing on me, I dared not tell anyone, for I had seen my friend just yesterday. To make matters worse, that petty top student decided to retaliate against the prank. He hacked into the school's surveillance system, and the footage clearly showed my friend following me into the restroom. Let's talk about that wedding. Xiao felt the scrutinizing gazes of everyone, which became unbearable, so he suddenly stood up and rushed out of the classroom. Seeing this, Ming, feeling concerned, followed closely behind him. In the computer room, Ming found Xiao. The poor guy was so scared that he couldn't speak. Just then, the girl who had borrowed a pen walked in and discovered something super important. "Oh, there you guys are," the girl exclaimed cheerfully. As Xiao stood up, he accidentally knocked over his pencil case, and amazingly, the missing pen was inside. The three immediately went to the restroom, where the lighting flickered oddly, creating an eerie atmosphere. Ming asked Xiao to recall what he did the last time he remembered the pen. Xiao thought carefully for a moment. "I didn't do anything back then," Xiao said blankly. "Come on, try to remember," Ming urged anxiously. "You remembered your mom," the girl teased. "Is that person still here?" Ming asked urgently. "That's right. Now you should feel guilty. Sincerely apologize to your friend to bring him back," the girl said seriously. Ming was anxious and said to Xiao, "It sounds reasonable, but do you really want him to come back? If he doesn't come back, you'll be in trouble." Xiao answered with lingering fear, "I'm afraid, and I regret that nothing happened." Ming took a deep breath. "You can't just think about yourself. You have to realize his importance. You're always like this, indifferent to everything." Xiao remained silent, and Ming continued, "The teacher told you to be serious, but you're still fooling around. You lost someone else's belongings and didn't even apologize. Now that your friend has disappeared, you probably don't care." Finally unable to bear it, Xiao cried out in grievance, "I just hope he disappears forever. He scares me every day. Having a friend like him only makes my life worse." Ming's tone remained calm. "If you really hated him, you wouldn't use the word friend. People have good and bad sides, and your friend may have more bad sides. But since you were close before, it means he must have some likable qualities." Suddenly, Xiao recalled an experience from middle school when he was a socially awkward student. His classmates were not very willing to interact with him, except for a friend named Gu Haidun, who actively communicated with him and tried to help him integrate into the class. Now, thinking back, Xiao felt a wave of guilt. Gu Haidun, Xiao murmured softly, "What are you doing?" With a flash of lights, a miracle occurred, and his friend actually appeared again in the stall. "Finally, I see you again," Xiao exclaimed excitedly. After experiencing this event, Xiao finally understood that his ability was not simply making objects disappear. He realized that all things in the world would gradually disappear with time, but as long as we cherish them enough, we can eventually find them again. Not long after, Xiao encountered his friend on campus again, but strangely, his friend seemed to not recognize him at all. Even more strangely, Xiao's ability seemed to be out of control again. What's going on? Xiao wondered, is there a bigger conspiracy behind the genius? What kind of abilities will those students who have not awakened their powers have?